Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your guys' host, SchuZ Schumaker. So, obviously, the time that I came on live was not exactly according to plan. Originally, I was going to come live at 1:30 p.m. earlier, but ended up being some issues in regards to technical difficulties. What we ended up finding out is for some reason, X is not allowing me to live stream at this point in time, but YouTube still is up and running. So, with that being said, for those of you that want to tune in typically on the X show, hopefully you guys are able to come over to YouTube, as I just promoted that on my social media platform. I will do that later. But those of you that are tuning in on YouTube, I appreciate you guys all for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys are having an incredible Wednesday night. And today will be a pretty short show overall. It's going to get into a couple different topics, and then I'll hop into ending the show today. But tomorrow, there will be a show tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll be having a guest on tomorrow. It'll be a much lengthier show. So make sure to hop in tomorrow on tomorrow night's show. But I'll discuss that more so before I get to the conclusion of today's show. But let's get into what I'm going to get into on today's show. A couple different things we're going to get into. One of which is the mega fight for Bam Rodriguez and what that fight could look like. Manny Pacquiao's potential opponents now that he's announced that he plans on returning in November. Derek Chisora allowing himself and saying he'd be okay having his final career fight go against Oleksandr Usyk in Ukraine. I'll give my thoughts on that one. As well as to wrap today's show, I'll be hopping into what the biggest names in British boxing are once this era of British boxers retires. That being of Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, Chisora, and Chris Eubank Jr., those types of guys. So stay tuned on today. But if there are any comments or discussions you guys want me to discuss on today's show, make sure to hop into the chat and discuss it at that point in time. With that being said, let's hop right into it today. Bam Rodriguez, I gave a quick little preview of some fights I'd like to see him fight in the near future. You know, with Bam Rodriguez, we're now looking at a man who is top 5 in the pound-for-pound list. We are talking about a guy that is likely going to become undisputed at 115. It's only a matter of time. That next fight is already lined up. He's got that lined up for himself. We've discussed that. So there's not much of a reason for me to hop into discussing, what is next for Bam Rodriguez, because we already know that. He'll be fighting Saudi Arabia in the near future. So I want to talk about this. I'm starting to feel like there is a massive fight brewing in boxing. Now, it is going to be a little bit of a time away from occurring. And I think that's okay. I know some people are going to think that I'm going to suggest Naoya Inoue. In fact, I actually don't think that fight will ever happen between him and Bam Rodriguez. That fight seems to be something that, due to age, the two different weight classes, potentially even 3 weight classes in between the two of them, if Inoue does move to 126 officially, so on and so forth, that just does not make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to suggest this. There is a fight that I believe has been brewing. It could have happened recently, but I'm actually happy it didn't. And that is between Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani. I believe that this fight between Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani has a chance to be the biggest fight in boxing one day if both guys continue to win. Here's how those stories come to fruition. For Bam Rodriguez, he'd have to continue to win and do his thing at 115, and then likely move up to 118 and win a world championship, or then move to 122. This also could happen if Junto moves back down to 118, which I do feel like is very unlikely because he's made it quite clear that 118 is not going to be able to make that weight anymore. But Junto Nakatani versus Bam Rodriguez is the fight to make. And I say this because both guys are much closer in age, and both guys are two of the top pound-for-pound type fighters in the world. And my belief is that one day, there is a chance that we're going to see a fight between Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani, and the winner could walk away as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Now, this might be 2 years or so down the road, but that's the type of fight we could be seeing. Both guys, their trajectory right now is setting themselves up to both be two of the top guys in all boxing. Junto is already well established within the top 10 of pound-pound list. Bam Rodriguez is now entered the top 5. If we allow these guys to continue to develop over the next 2 or so years, we could be looking at a massive fight. We look at Bivol and Beterbiev. That fight's such a massive fight right now because it's two guys that you could debate are top 5 or top 6 fighters in all boxing right now. You don't get that very often. But when's the last time we've seen the potential two of the top guys on the pound-for-pound list go at it? That's not something you see very often in boxing. But there's a chance that this occurs if and or when Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani step foot in that ring and fight each other. That has a chance to be not only one of the biggest, but also the best fight to make in boxing one day. And I know some people will look around and say, hey, why are these guys not making this fight yet? Why don't we let that brew for a little bit longer? Because the biggest fight to make in boxing, debatably, I'd say second to only Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua at Wembley Stadium, is Junto Nakatani and Naoya Inoue at the Tokyo Dome. So if you're Junto Nakatani, you're not going to pass up on that payday or that opportunity to go out there and fight in the Tokyo Dome against Inoue. That's life-changing money, exposure, and resume win potentially for him in that fight. You don't turn that down. But if these two guys continue the trajectory that they're currently going at, in 2 or 3 years, we could see one of the biggest fights in all boxing go down between these two guys. And I feel like both guys need to be patient and let that time settle in. Because if they are patient, if Bam becomes undisputed at 115, and then he moves to 118, becomes world champion there, and Junto is doing his thing at 122, we have a chance to be looking at one of the biggest fights to make in all boxing. And not only biggest, one of the best. And it would give us one of the rare opportunities where the winner of that fight would walk away pound for pound, number one in all the world. That's why I hope to see in that situation there. Let's head over now to Manny Pacquiao. I said yesterday that Rolly Romero and Tank Davis are the two names that are seeming to be in discussion right now. What do I make about that? Well, that was what I discussed on yesterday's show. I'll elaborate that momentarily. But here's the interesting one. Rumors were circulating, now not from Manny Pacquiao himself, but rumors were circulating that had Manny Pacquiao won last week on Saturday, that there was a chance Floyd Mayweather would come out of retirement and we would see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao rematch for the second time in their career at their ages for a world championship. Once Manny Pacquiao did not win that fight, it felt like that bubble had burst. Floyd Mayweather was not going to put his 15-0 record on the line against Manny Pacquiao if a world championship was not involved. But now it seems that this fight could possibly be back on the table now. And Manny Pacquiao came out and made it very clear that he is open to a rematch with Floyd Mayweather if Floyd Mayweather comes out of retirement. He would not want to see. But hopefully we get that figured out real quickly. With that being said, let's get right back to that segment. Ideally, when we're looking at the situation, I would not really want to go out there and see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fight each other right now. I've already been very outspoken about this. When it comes to Manny Pacquiao, I didn't want to see him back in the ring regardless. There's too much of a risk when he's already accomplished so much. He's accomplished everything in boxing. There's no reason for him to get back into the ring and fight again. And I've made that very, very clear. And the same can be said about Floyd Mayweather as well. I understand if they fight each other, it'd be a unique situation, but I don't really want to see that fight happen. I know the money, I get all that. If you're Manny Pacquiao and you seriously do want to fight, then okay, I understand it. If he wants to make that fight happen, go make it happen. But I think if we're being realistic here, Rolly Romero is the right option. As crazy as it is to say this, that Rolly Romero and Manny Pacquiao in 2025 is a fight to make, never in my life did I ever think I'd be saying this. But here we are. For Gervonta Tank Davis, that option makes no sense. Tank would be moving up 2 weight classes to fight Manny Pacquiao when Tank needs to take care of his own business, both inside and outside of the ring, let me add that. But Rolly Romero is currently the WBA regular champion. It would give Manny Pacquiao an opportunity to become a champion right away. And if we're looking at all the fights, I don't think anybody wants to see Mario Barrios in that rematch. That was pathetic. If we're going to look at a legitimate fight, Rolly Romero could make a lot of sense there. Rolly's always entertaining. He's a funny character. The build-up process would be fun. PBC's both in line with both those guys. That seemed like the fight to make. As crazy as it is to say that, Rolly Romero, Manny Pacquiao for the WBA regular championship. And honestly, if that happens, I feel like the WBA would elevate Rolly to become world champion, just to put it out there because Manny Pacquiao, and Manny would have another chance at a world championship shot. That's how I see it unfolding. It makes the most sense to me. That's what I feel like what happened there. Derek Chisora has now confirmed that he would be willing to rematch Oleksandr Usyk in Ukraine. Usyk stated last week he will eventually have a homecoming fight at the Kyiv Olympic Stadium. All right. That would be interesting. Is it the fight I want to see? No. I've made it very clear. I want to see Joseph Parker and Oleksandr Usyk fight. That's the fight to make. No other fight. That's the fight to make right there. I want to see Oleksandr Usyk and Joseph Parker. However, I did make it very clear, though, that if Oleksandr Usyk does not want to fight Joseph Parker and he wants to just go out there and fight somebody on his own terms, I'd be okay with that. He's earned that right. Therefore, Derek Chisora could be the option. Usyk would do ungodly things to Derek Chisora if they were to step in that ring together. We do not need to see that rematch. Not one bit whatsoever. However, there's only going to be a handful of guys that would actually want to go out there and fight in Ukraine. But just make that very clear. And for Derek Chisora, he's already made it clear. He's on his 50th fight, and it'll be his final fight. He's already ended his career in the British world. So he's not going to go back and fight in Britain. It's either going to be Africa, as what has been rumored for a long time, or he's going to go out there and fight potentially in Ukraine, it appears. Would that be a good fight? No. Would it be entertaining? Probably not. But that fight seems to be realistic. And I'll be okay with that. I will give the pass to Usyk if that's what he chooses to do, because I personally believe that he's done everything he needs to do to accomplish at this point in his career to be able to go out and do whatever he wants to do for his final fight. And in that situation, it'll be unique. Both guys, Derek Chisora and Usyk, will be having the final fights of their careers for Undisputed, and both guys will retire. What that means then is that regardless of what happens in that fight, all 4 belts will then open up. Because if both guys are obviously retired, we're not going to have any guy fighting anymore. Therefore, Chisora, Usyk, all 4 belts open up. A whole new era of heavyweight boxing would then emerge. It gives Joseph Parker his shot. It gives Mosley Toma his shot. It gives all these other guys the option, and even throw it out there, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. Everybody now is a player once again in the heavyweight division, which would be interesting. So let's see what ends up unfolding right there. Final thing I want to get into on today's show, and it's regarding this. What are the biggest names in British boxing once Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora, Chris Eubank Jr., etc. retire in the next year or so? The Ring posted that question this morning, and it got me thinking. Where does UK boxing go after this? They are one of, not the greatest fan base in terms of boxing right now. They love their boxing. And this is going to be an era of their next. There's going to be an entire era of boxing right now in Britain that is going to be moving on from boxing within the next year or so. And I just listed some of those guys as others you could throw in there. Where do they go from here? Well, here's my tiers. I made a couple different tiers right here. I made the locks, very likely, possibly, and too early to tell. Also, I said people that are not in the combo for face of boxing, but also great fighters moving forward. So let me give you guys my tiers. I feel like this: the 2 guys you can consider locks for the future era of heavyweight boxing in Britain would be Deanna Dubois and Conor Benn. I know some people are going to go out there and say, "Hey, Conor Benn's a PED dude. Conor Benn's in this, that, and the third." Conor Benn was just a part of debatably the fight of the year, the fight of the decade, the fight of maybe even the century when he fought Chris Eubank Jr. And also, for people that are not familiar with it, if you are hated in boxing, that can sometimes be a good thing, a la Floyd Mayweather. If you're Conor Benn, he continues to ride the hate train as he's been doing, that can still make you one of the biggest names in boxing. And he will be one of the faces of this next era of boxing in Britain. Other one, as I said, Daniel Dubois. I've made it very clear. He has some daddy problems. He's got to take care of his father and get him out of his life. But outside of that, he is going to be back. He's 27 years old, has already been a world champion. He just fought one of the greatest fighters in boxing history and got KO'd again. It is what it is. If you're Daniel Dubois, he is going to be back. He is 27 years old. He is going to be back. He has possibly an entire decade in front of him of boxing at the heavyweight stages. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be just fine. So those are the 2 locks. The 2 guys I consider very likely: Mosley Toma, Hamza Shiraz. Mosley Toma is obvious. Debatably the number 1 prospect in all boxing. The only reason I cannot call him a lock is because he has not done everything that we would like him to see at this point in time. Fighting Dillian Whyte up in August 16, that is going to be about 3 weeks out. Obviously, it's a situation that's going to help elevate his name, but that could be very close to a lock. I'm just going to consider him likely. Likewise for Hamza Shiraz, yet to be a world champion, right in the mix. Obviously, just had a great performance against Edgar Berlanga, but we've got to wait a little bit. Wait until he becomes world champion for me to give himself that lock. His branding is not as big as a Conor Benn, so therefore it's hard for me to do that. But I do believe both those guys will become some of the faces in British boxing moving forward. In the possibly group, Ben Whitaker, Adam Azim. For Adam Azim specifically, actually both these guys, obviously been with Boxer and whatever train wreck they got going on right there, Adam Azim is a man that I think has been screwed over by Ben Shalom badly. Ben Whitaker had his opportunity. The Liam Cameron fight was great. All worked out for him in that sense. He's grown. He's part of a Saudi Arabia card. He's got a big enough brand right now where it's trending in the right direction. He just needs to prove himself inside the ring for me to move him up into that lock stage. But Ben Whitaker's been taken better care of. Adam Azim has been absolutely brutally taken care of by Boxer. He was going to be just thrown on a card a couple days' notice earlier, which absolutely was ludicrous a couple months ago. Thankfully, that didn't end up happening, but still. That entire situation was a train wreck. And then you look at Adam Azim. This is a man that should be fighting consistently. He is young, a top contender, 22 years old if I'm not mistaken, a rising star in boxing. And yet he's been sitting on the shelf and only fighting 1 or 2 times a year. Absolutely ridiculous. If Adam Azim goes to the right promotional group like Eddie Hearn and Matchroom or even Frank Warren and Queensberry or whatever it is, he's going to be in a much better situation to blossom and flourish because he does have star potential. He just needs the opportunity to go out there and show it. And his current promoter, Ben Shalom, doesn't know what he's doing right now. It's an absolute train wreck. I've discussed it already before, and I might even bring up another segment in regards to that because the TV deal is turning out to be a train wreck out there in the UK now that they're done with the Sky Sports deal. That's what I'm going to say about him. Now, the too early to tell is three different guys. Vicioli, George Ledard, Dalton Smith. I'm a big fan of all these guys. I think all guys at different stages. For Dalton Smith, he's the closest to world title championship contention. Obviously, it appears that Turkey Al-Sheikh is going to let him have a world title shot next. We'll see if that ends up happening or coming to fruition. But still, Dalton Smith is heavily in the mix right now. He is a guy that has a world title shot in the future. But I've got to see a little bit more from him until he emerges and solidifies himself in that top tier group. For Ledard and Vicioli, both guys are many years out from becoming world title contentions, but I like what I see. Both guys have star power and the personalities, personas, all those boxes are checked already, and I think the potential is there. We just have to wait and see what happens. Other guys that I consider as big names, but are not in the convo as face of the boxing yet in the UK, include Nick Ball, Fabio Wardley, Callum Simpson, Alois Jr., Vidal Riley could throw in there as well. Those guys are all guys that I really enjoy watching. I just don't see them ever being the quote-unquote faces of this era. Nick Ball, you could consider him, but he's already 28 years old at a lower weight class. Not sure how many more years he's got there. But those all are guys that are going to be stalwarts in terms of just great British boxers. But I don't feel like they have a chance to be, a Tyson Fury, a Dillian White, Anthony Joshua, Chris Eubank Jr. They're a little bit below those guys. So those are all great fighters. But little Wi-Fi thing. Hopefully we're back live now. Hopefully we're all good. There we are. With that being said, though, I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your guys' night. As I said, today was going to be a very short show. Just want to get on here and discuss some things with you guys. So I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today's show. I'll be back live tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Have a blessed remainder of you guys Wednesday. I will see you guys tomorrow. And with that being said, SchuZ is out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you guys.